No alien wanted the paralyzed princess, so they married her off to a human. Outside, the gardens bloomed in vibrant shades of alien flora, plants with leaves that glowed faintly and flowers that hummed in soft tones. It was beautiful, but Lyra barely noticed. For years she had been a princess of Veloria, born into a world of elegance, science, and high expectations. She had grown up learning languages, history, mathematics, and the delicate arts of diplomacy. She had even mastered the skill of floating chairs, a Valorian invention that allowed those with limited mobility to glide effortlessly across rooms. Yet, despite all her knowledge and grace, Lyra felt the sting of rejection every day. The truth was simple: she was paralyzed from the waist down. A childhood accident had left her unable to walk. On Veloria, where physical perfection was prized almost above all else, this was a flaw that few could forgive. And in a society where princesses were expected to marry influential suitors, Lyra's disability was seen as a problem no one wanted to solve. One by one, her alien suitors had come and gone. Some had been handsome and ambitious, their scales shimmering or feathers gleaming under the palace lights. But the moment they saw her wheelchair, the smile on their faces would fade. Some would make excuses, citing distant planets or urgent duties. Others would be polite but cold, retreating from courtly conversations, leaving Lyra with polite words that felt empty. Lyra had learned to hide her disappointment, but each rejection left a deeper mark on her heart. She sometimes wondered if she would ever find someone who could see her beyond the chair, beyond the weakness the Valorian world insisted she had. On this day, the royal council had summoned her to the throne room. Her parents, King Orin and Queen Selara, stood at the head of a long table filled with advisors, council members, and palace officials. The council was anxious. Lyra's marriage had been delayed far too long, and Valorian tradition demanded alliances through marriage to strengthen the kingdom's influence. "Lyra," her father began, his voice deep and steady, "we have considered many options, but the truth is, no Valorian suitor has accepted the proposal." Lyra nodded politely, though inside she felt a familiar pang of frustration. "I understand, father." The council murmured among themselves. Finally, Queen Selara spoke. "There is one possibility, unusual, but it may serve the kingdom well. A human from Earth has arrived as part of the ambassadorial mission. He is different, but he may be suitable." Lyra blinked. "A human?" she asked, curiosity mingling with surprise. "You mean one of the primitive species from the neighboring stars?" "Yes," said her mother. "He is a representative of his people. Unusual, yes, but intelligent, brave, and he may be willing." The council waited for her reaction. Lyra leaned back in her chair, feeling a strange mixture of hope and uncertainty. Humans were little known to Valorians. Most saw them as primitive, fragile, and lacking the sophistication of Valorian science or culture. But sometimes the unknown held possibilities no one expected. "I will meet him," she said softly. "I will speak with him." The council exchanged cautious glances. "It is unorthodox," one official said, "but perhaps it is the best choice remaining." And so it was decided. Days later, the human arrived. Lyra watched from the palace balcony as the starship descended slowly, its hull gleaming under Valoria's twin suns. It landed in the courtyard, and the doors opened with a soft hiss. Out stepped a man, tall and strong, with dark hair and warm eyes that seemed to take in everything around him without judgment. Captain Elias, as he was called, moved with careful precision. His uniform was simple but neat, unlike the elaborate robes of Valorian nobles. He carried no weapon, no device of status, only himself and his confidence. Lyra felt a flicker of curiosity. Most aliens would approach with haughty pride, seeking to impress her. This human did not. He walked with calm assurance, as though the world itself were interesting rather than threatening. When they met, he bowed slightly, not the formal bow of Valorian etiquette but a gesture of respect. "Princess Lyra," he said in a clear, even voice, "it is an honor to meet you." Lyra inclined her head. "The honor is mine, Captain Elias." She studied him carefully. Humans were said to be primitive, but this one seemed different. There was a quiet intelligence in his eyes, a calm confidence that no Valorian suitor had ever shown her. Over the next few days, the humans spent time with Lyra in the palace. At first, their conversations were cautious. He asked about Valoria, its customs, its history, and its sciences. Lyra answered politely, but her mind was alert, measuring his reactions, wondering if he truly belonged among Valorian elites. To her surprise, Elias asked questions not to flatter, but to understand. He was genuinely curious about her world, her life, and even her disability. He noticed the subtle innovations in the palace designed to help her move freely, and he admired them. "This is remarkable," he said one afternoon, as Lyra glided across the throne room in her floating chair. "You can move so freely. I never imagined a palace could adapt to someone so brilliantly." Lyra felt a small smile lift her lips. None of her alien suitors had ever seen these things, not really. They had seen her weakness, not her ingenuity. Elias saw both. Days turned into weeks, and Lyra began to look forward to their time together. He did not pity her. He did not speak of her disability as a problem. Instead, he treated her as a partner in conversation, a friend, an equal. Yet not all Valorians were pleased. Whispers floated through the palace corridors. "A human for the princess? How strange. He is primitive. Surely this cannot succeed." Lyra ignored the murmurs, though a small part of her worried. Could a human truly belong in Valorian society? Could someone so different understand her world? One evening she asked Elias directly, "Do you really want this? To marry me, I mean?" Elias smiled gently. "I do not care what others think. I want to learn from you, to explore with you. I want to be your partner, not just your guest or your servant. If you feel the same, then yes, I want this." Lyra's heart fluttered. She had never heard such sincerity from any suitor, alien or otherwise. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, not for her chair, not for her title, but for herself. The council noticed the change in Lyra. She smiled more often, spoke more confidently, and even began to suggest small improvements in the palace. Slowly, their skepticism of the humans softened, though some remained doubtful. As the first part of their unusual courtship unfolded, Lyra felt a spark of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, this human could be different. Perhaps the world could be different. And for the first time in years, she imagined a future not defined by rejection, pity, or flaw, but by possibility. The sun set over Valoria's gardens, painting the sky in gold and purple. Princess Lyra sat by the balcony, thinking of the human who had entered her life. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time she was eager to find out. And somewhere deep inside, she whispered to herself, maybe being unwanted was not the end. Maybe it was the beginning. The day Captain Elias officially entered the Valorian palace, a quiet buzz of curiosity and skepticism filled the grand halls. Courtiers whispered behind their hands. Nobles tilted their heads and watched from crystal balconies. A human, a species considered primitive and fragile, was now to become part of Valoria's royal court. Lyra, sitting gracefully in her floating chair, watched him approach. Unlike the alien suitors who had come before, Elias carried no haughty pride. He did not glance around to assert his dominance or status. He simply walked with a calm, measured pace, his dark eyes observing everything without judgment. "Princess Lyra," he said, bowing slightly, "I am honored to meet you in person." Lyra inclined her head politely. "And I you, Captain Elias. Welcome to Valoria." The alien council shuffled uncomfortably. Some frowned. The court expected drama, arrogance, or at least pretension. Instead, Elias exuded a quiet confidence that unsettled them. He smiled at Lyra, and something in that smile, gentle, attentive, and genuine, made her heart skip. Over the next few days, Lyra and Elias spent time together under the pretext of courtly duty. She introduced him to the palace gardens, where plants hummed in harmonic resonance. She showed him the library, a vast room containing knowledge spanning centuries and worlds. And she demonstrated her floating chair, gliding across rooms with practiced ease. Elias watched intently, asking questions that surprised her. "Do all Valorians move like this?" he asked one afternoon as she floated across the throne room. "No," Lyra replied, a small smile on her lips. "Most walk or fly using their natural abilities. I cannot," he nodded thoughtfully. "I see, and these devices, they help you, yes." "You designed improvements yourself," Lyra blinked. "I did, some of them, yes, but it is expected. A princess must be able to navigate the palace independently." "Independently," he repeated, "yet with elegance. I admire that." For the first time, someone outside her immediate family praised her for her ingenuity rather than her flaw. It was intoxicating. As the days passed, the human learned more about Valorian customs, and Lyra learned about Earth. Elias shared stories of human cities, strange inventions, and creative ways humans solved problems with limited resources. Lyra was fascinated. On Valoria, technology was advanced but rigid, governed by rules and tradition. On Earth, humans seemed to thrive on improvisation and ingenuity. "You improvise," Lyra observed one evening as they worked on a small device together. "Your solutions are unexpected, creative, unlike Valorian methods." Elias grinned. "We have to be. Sometimes we don't have your technology, so we make do. And often, the simplest solutions are the best." Lyra nodded slowly. She realized that she had been too constrained by Valorian expectations. Perhaps there was more than one way to approach the world. The court, however, did not take kindly to this budding relationship. Some nobles whispered about the unworthy human who dared enter the royal sphere. At dinners, they commented under their breath, questioning whether Lyra was being foolish. Lyra noticed, of course, but she did not allow it to affect her. Elias, meanwhile, remained unfazed by the whispers. "They are curious," he said one evening as they strolled along the glowing palace gardens. "Some will doubt, some will gossip, some will resist. That is natural. But it does not matter what they think, Princess Lyra. Only what we do together matters." Lyra looked at him, surprised. His words were simple, yet they carried weight. In Valoria, people often spoke in elaborate, carefully measured phrases to impress or manipulate. Elias spoke plainly, honestly. It felt refreshing, almost liberating. For the first time in years, Lyra felt free, not free of her disability, but free of the judgment that had weighed on her heart. Their partnership began to extend beyond conversation. One day, a minor accident occurred in the palace's observation deck. A floating platform malfunctioned, sending a crate of delicate instruments teetering dangerously close to the edge. Without hesitation, Elias acted. He grabbed the crate, steadying it with human strength and balance, while Lyra guided the platform safely to the ground using her chair's controls. The nobles watching gasped. They had expected failure, chaos, or humiliation for the human and the princess. Instead, they saw competence, teamwork, and calm problem-solving. Lyra felt a rush of admiration. "You're remarkable," she admitted quietly. "You make it easy," he said with a small smile. "You are calm, prepared, and intelligent. I only follow your lead." The words warmed her more than any compliment she had received from alien suitors. They worked as equals, respected each other's abilities, and complemented each other perfectly. Over time, their bond deepened. They shared private lessons in alien science, debating complex theories. They explored Earth philosophy, comparing it to Valorian logic. Elias taught Lyra how to create simple devices that could aid her mobility in even more creative ways. Lyra taught Elias the subtle arts of diplomacy, showing him how gestures, tone, and subtle expressions carried meaning in Valorian culture. One evening, Lyra asked softly, "Do you think we could really belong together?" In this world, Elias took her hand gently. I already do, Lyra. I don't care if others see us as strange or unfit. I care about us. If we work together, respect each other, and learn from each other, then yes, we belong. No matter what anyone says. Lyra's heart lifted. She had never imagined hearing such words. No alien suitor had ever offered such assurance. No Valorian voice had ever celebrated her mind, her creativity, or her spirit so openly. Despite their growing closeness, challenges persisted. Some nobles attempted subtle sabotage, misdirecting messages, questioning Elia's competence, or undermining Lyra's suggestions. But every time, Elias responded calmly, finding solutions that were clever yet peaceful. He used diplomacy, reasoning, and innovation to prevent conflict without confrontation. Lyra noticed the contrast. Whereas Valorians often relied on authority and intimidation, humans used logic, empathy, and creativity. It was fascinating, and slowly it earned her respect for him and, surprisingly, admiration from a few open-minded council members. One day, they visited the royal archives, a vast hall filled with floating holograms of Valoria's history. Lyra guided Elias through the collection, showing him records of past rulers, wars, inventions, and treaties. He listened intently, asking questions that revealed his understanding and curiosity. Your people have achieved incredible things, Elias said. But sometimes I think you are trapped by tradition. You measure worth in ways that are rigid. Intelligence, creativity, kindness, these are what matter most, and they are rare no matter where you look. Lyra smiled softly. You speak as if you understand Valoria better than Valorians themselves. Perhaps, he replied, because I don't try to fit into your world. I try to understand it, and I admire what I see. And I admire you. Her heart beat faster. These were not empty words or flattery. They were honest, direct, and filled with respect. She felt herself trusting him in a way she had never trusted another soul. As days turned into weeks, Lyra began to see a new future, one where her disability did not define her. One where partnership meant respect, collaboration, and love. And one where humans, so underestimated by her people, could teach Valoria lessons of ingenuity, empathy, and courage. The court began to notice subtle changes. Nobles who had once doubted Elias' worth now whispered about his cleverness and calm problem-solving. Some even admitted admiration for the human's ability to navigate Valorian society without arrogance or conflict. Lyra felt hope bloom within her. Perhaps her people could learn, perhaps her society could change. And perhaps, most importantly, she could find companionship, understanding, and love in someone who valued her for everything she truly was. The sun set again over Valoria's twin suns, casting long shadows across the palace gardens. Lyra and Elias walked together along the glowing paths, their conversation light but meaningful. Birds with iridescent feathers sang above them. The air was filled with the soft hum of flowers and the gentle breeze of alien winds. Lyra looked at Elias, her mind racing with possibilities. Do you think this can work? Between us, I mean. In this world, he smiled, taking her hand. It already is working, Lyra. Step by step, day by day, we are learning, growing, and changing together, and nothing, not even doubt or tradition, can stop that. Lyra nodded, feeling a warmth she had never known. She realized that no matter what Valoria thought of humans or of her, she had found someone who saw her mind, her heart, and her spirit. And in that realization, she found strength, hope, and excitement for the future. For the first time in her life, Lyra did not feel unwanted. She felt understood, she felt empowered, and she felt ready to embrace whatever came next, together with Elias. The palace of Valoria had never been as lively as it was during the days of Princess Lyra and Captain Elias. Courtiers whispered constantly, watching the unusual pair move through the halls with confidence and purpose. The human, once seen as an outsider, now walked beside Lyra as a partner in both thought and action. Lyra felt a strange sense of pride and power. Not the kind her title gave her, but the kind that came from being recognized for her intelligence, her ideas, and her courage. Elias had a way of seeing her for who she truly was, and it inspired her to push beyond her own limits. One morning, they met in the palace courtyard, where the sun reflected off the smooth crystal tiles. Lyra had spent hours sketching ideas for devices that would make her movement even easier and the palace more accessible. Elias arrived carrying tools from his human ship, curious to see what she had created. "You've thought of so many improvements," Elias said, examining her designs. "These are brilliant. I think we can make them even better with some adjustments." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "You mean you can help me build them?" "Of course," Elias replied. "It is teamwork, your ideas, my human ways of doing things. Together we can make something extraordinary." And so they worked. For hours they measured, adjusted, and experimented. Valorian devices met human improvisation in a flurry of creativity. A wheelchair with improved balance, a floating chair that responded faster to hand gestures, and communication devices that allowed Lyra to control machinery with subtle motions. All these were born from their collaboration. The court watched from a distance. Some nobles muttered, "A human working with a princess. What nonsense!" Others whispered admiringly, "The results are impressive. Perhaps the human is not so weak after all." Their partnership extended beyond engineering. They attended public ceremonies, sat in council meetings, and discussed matters of state. Elias never attempted to dominate or lecture. He listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions, and offered ideas respectfully. Lyra noticed how his presence changed the room. People spoke differently around him, even the skeptical nobles. There was less arrogance, more consideration. One afternoon, Lyra and Elias were invited to the Valorian Science Assembly, a gathering of the kingdom's top thinkers. The council expected skepticism, maybe even embarrassment. Instead, the human astonished the scholars. "When faced with a problem," Elias explained, showing a small prototype of their collaborative design, "sometimes the simplest solution is not the one dictated by tradition, but the one that works in practice." Innovation requires courage, curiosity, and the willingness to try something new. The audience murmured in surprise. Valorian scholars rarely heard such clear and practical reasoning. They were used to theoretical perfection, not solutions that worked in real life. Lyra felt a glow of pride as she watched the human speak, not as a guest but as a true partner. Even as they impressed the court, challenges arose. Some nobles secretly plotted to discredit Elias. They sent false reports about his Earth technology, spread rumors about his intentions, and tried to sway Lyra into doubt. One evening, Lyra confronted him quietly in the palace gardens. "Some of the council, they do not trust you. They want me to doubt you too." Elias shook his head. "Let them talk. Words cannot change facts. Look at what we have built together, the problems we have solved, the people we have helped. Truth is stronger than gossip, Lyra." She smiled, reassured by his confidence. "You always know what to say to make me feel stronger. And you make me see new ways of thinking," Elias replied. "Together, we are stronger than either of us alone." Their growing partnership inspired subtle changes in Valoria. Scholars who had doubted Elias began asking for his advice. Engineers adapted some of his human methods to improve Valorian technology. Even palace staff found themselves learning from his practical, solution-focused approach. Lyra noticed that she was also changing. She felt more confident speaking in council meetings, proposing ideas for the kingdom's future, and challenging traditions that no longer serve the people. And each time Elias praised her ideas, her determination grew stronger. One day, they discovered a problem in the palace's energy grid. A minor malfunction had caused floating lights to flicker unpredictably, and some maintenance drones were struggling to stabilize the system. "This could get worse if left unattended," Lyra said, analyzing the situation. Elias nodded. "Let's fix it together." Using a combination of Valorian precision and human improvisation, they quickly diagnosed the problem. Lyra guided the drones with her chair controls, while Elias adjusted the power circuits using simple Earth tools adapted for Valorian technology. Within an hour, the lights glowed steadily again, and the energy grid was stabilized. The nobles who had doubted him were forced to acknowledge his competence. One whispered to another, "Perhaps the human is not entirely unworthy." Lyra beamed, proud not just of Elias but of the team they had become. Their personal bond also deepened. They shared quiet moments in the palace gardens, discussing hopes, dreams, and fears. Lyra confided in Elias about her insecurities, her fears of being unwanted, and the pressure to meet Valorian expectations. "You have always been enough, Lyra," Elias said softly, taking her hand. "Your disability does not define you. Your mind, your courage, your kindness, that is what matters, and I see all of it." Lyra's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "No one has ever said that to me before," she whispered. "Then let me be the first," Elias replied. They laughed softly, and in that laughter the tension of centuries of prejudice seemed to lift, if only a little. Even as the palace slowly accepted Elias, some resistance remained. Certain nobles tried to undermine his credibility, insisting that a human could never fully understand Valorian politics or culture. But each challenge was met with calm intelligence. Elias and Lyra worked together to explain their decisions, demonstrate results, and involve others in their problem-solving process. In doing so, they not only proved Elias' worth, but also subtly taught Valorians a new way of thinking: collaboration, respect for different perspectives, and the power of ingenuity over tradition. One evening, as twin moons rose over Valoria, Lyra and Elias sat by the observation deck, watching the sky shift through shades of gold, violet, and blue. "Do you think Valoria will ever truly accept me?" Lyra asked, her voice quiet, thoughtful. Elias took her hand gently. "It is already beginning. People see what we can accomplish together. They cannot deny the truth. We are a team, and in time the truth changes minds." Lyra smiled, feeling hope bloom within her. "I never imagined a human could understand me or inspire me in ways no Valorian ever did." "Sometimes," Elias said softly, "it is the unexpected who shows us the greatest possibilities." They watched the moons rise, casting silver light across the gardens. Lyra realized that her life was no longer defined by what she lacked, but by what she could create, achieve, and share. And at her side, Elias was not just a human ambassador, but a partner, a friend, and a companion who valued her mind, her heart, and her spirit. For the first time, Lyra felt truly equal to someone, respected for her brilliance and her courage. And in that equality, she discovered strength she never knew she had. The court continued to watch, curious and cautious. Some nobles were still skeptical, some still whispered, but many were beginning to admire the partnership between the princess and the human. They could not ignore the results, the inventions, the calm problem-solving, and the quiet leadership that the pair demonstrated daily. Lyra felt a sense of anticipation. She knew challenges would continue to arise, but she also knew that with Elias by her side, they could face them together. And somewhere deep inside, she understood that this was more than a marriage of duty. It was a bridge between worlds, a partnership that could change Valoria itself. The twin suns rose over Valoria, casting long beams of golden light across the palace gardens. Princess Lyra sat in her floating chair, her mind alert and focused. Today was important. Today, she and Captain Elias would face the final test of their partnership, not through invention, debate, or council meetings, but through action that could not be ignored. A sudden tremor shook the palace. The floating walkways wavered and some devices began to falter. The energy grid, already delicate, was in danger of collapsing. A small fault in the central core could disrupt the palace's operations for days. Lyra's pulse quickened. She turned to Elias, who was already analyzing the situation with a calm intensity. "We need to stabilize the core," she said. "If it fails, the entire palace could be affected." Elias nodded. "I'm with you. Let's do this together." The two moved quickly. Lyra guided maintenance drones with precise hand motions, sending them to repair wiring, adjust circuits, and stabilize energy conduits. Elias moved among the physical panels, recalibrating and connecting devices with swift human efficiency. Some of the nobles, who had been watching from a distance, gasped. No Valorian had ever worked with such harmony, combining intelligence, creativity, and skill in real time. Even skeptics were forced to acknowledge the effectiveness of their partnership. "Princess, the left conduit is unstable," Elias called, pointing to a critical junction. "I see it," Lyra replied. Using her chair controls, she directed a drone to support the failing conduit. Sparks flew briefly, but the system held. "Good," Elias said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Now the main core." Together they recalibrated the central core, adjusting both Valorian and human systems to compensate for the fault. The palace lights stabilized, humming softly with renewed energy. The danger had passed. The nobles erupted into quiet murmurs of admiration. Some whispered, "The human, he is capable." Others nodded at Lyra, acknowledging her leadership. Lyra exhaled, leaning back in her chair. She looked at Elias, and for a moment, words were unnecessary. They had faced a true challenge together, and succeeded. That evening, a grand ceremony was announced. The council invited all citizens and dignitaries to witness the acknowledgement of the human ambassador and the princess as equals. It was unprecedented. Valoria had never recognized a human in such a position of honor. The palace halls were adorned with shimmering crystals, the air filled with the gentle hum of alien flora. Citizens gathered, curious and hopeful, to witness history in the making. Lyra and Elias entered together, their hands brushing lightly, a quiet signal of unity. The crowd fell silent as the king rose to speak. "Today," King Orin began, "we celebrate a partnership that has demonstrated courage, intelligence, and collaboration. Princess Lyra and Captain Elias have faced challenges together, solved problems no one else could, and shown us the value of unity between our people and humans." Applause echoed through the halls. For the first time, the human received the recognition he deserved. Nobles who had opposed him now bowed respectfully. Scholars who had doubted his methods acknowledged their effectiveness. Even those who whispered skeptically before could no longer deny the truth. Lyra felt a swell of pride and relief. The acceptance was not just for Elias, it was for her too. For years she had been judged for her disability, overlooked for her mind and creativity. Today she was acknowledged for who she truly was, a leader, a thinker, and a visionary. Elias leaned close, whispering, "You have always been extraordinary, Lyra. Today everyone sees it," she smiled. "And you helped me show them. Together we did it." The ceremony continued with the announcement of new initiatives inspired by their partnership. Accessibility improvements would be implemented across the palace and public spaces. Scholars and engineers were encouraged to combine Valorian precision with human creativity. Cultural exchanges between Valoria and Earth were to be expanded, fostering understanding and cooperation. Lyra and Elias moved through the crowd, answering questions, sharing ideas, and demonstrating devices they had created together. Children watched with wide eyes, imagining possibilities beyond what they had been taught. Adults began to reconsider their own prejudices, seeing the value in collaboration across species and abilities. Even the skeptics could not argue with results. The human ambassador had not only survived Valorian society, he had improved it. Later, as the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, Lyra and Elias returned to the quiet palace gardens. The twin moons rose again, painting the sky in silver and violet. The soft hum of alien flowers filled the air, a soothing reminder of the world around them. Lyra looked at Elias. "Do you think it will last? The acceptance, I mean. Will people really embrace these changes?" Elias smiled, taking her hand. "Change takes time. Some will resist, some will take longer to understand. But we have started something important. People have seen the truth, and the truth is hard to ignore." Lyra nodded, feeling hope bloom in her chest. She thought of the children who watched them, the scholars who learned new ways, and the nobles who had begun to reconsider their judgments. Perhaps Veloria could be better than it had ever been. "And us?" she asked softly. "Do you think we have a future together?" Elias squeezed her hand gently. "We already do. We have faced challenges, grown together, and changed the world around us. Whatever comes next, we face it as equals, as partners, and as friends who understand each other completely." Lyra's heart swelled. For the first time in her life, she felt not just accepted, but truly valued. Her disability no longer defined her. Her mind, her courage, and her spirit shone brighter than ever, and beside her was someone who saw all of it. Days turned into weeks, and life in the palace adjusted to the new reality. Humans visiting Veloria were treated with respect. Children learned from both human and Velorian teachers. Engineers experimented with new ideas, blending Earth ingenuity with Velorian technology. Lyra continued to lead, now with Elias at her side, both as a partner and as a collaborator. One afternoon, Lyra and Elias strolled through the palace gardens. Birds with iridescent feathers sang overhead, and the soft glow of alien flora lit their path. "You know," Lyra said thoughtfully, "I never imagined a human could change my life or Veloria so completely." Elias smiled. "Sometimes it is the unexpected who teaches us the most." Lyra laughed softly. "And sometimes it is the ones we least expect who see us for who we truly are." He nodded, understanding without words. Together they walked forward, ready to face whatever the future held. Not as princess and outsider, but as equals, partners who had proven that courage, intelligence, and kindness could bridge worlds. In the years that followed, Veloria flourished. Humans and Velorians collaborated on scientific discoveries, cultural projects, and social innovations. Accessibility became a priority in every public space. Children grew up learning that worth was not measured by appearance or strength, but by character, intelligence, and empathy. Princess Lyra and Captain Elias remained at the heart of this transformation. Their story, once doubted, then questioned, and finally celebrated, became a legend in Velorian history. A tale not of a marriage of convenience, but of a partnership that changed an entire world. And in the quiet of the palace gardens, under the light of the twin moons, Lyra realized she had found something far greater than a suitor or a title. She had found understanding, respect, and love. The princess who had once been unwanted now walked forward, glided forward, in a world that recognized her worth. And beside her, a human ambassador smiled, proud of the future they would build together.